Although I spent a lot of time in these parts talking about anxiety, some of you may have noticed lately that I've been talking a lot about homeopathy and some of the concepts that I was introduced to. Hey guys, and welcome to Change Your Mind. In this episode, I will tie several different ideas together with the objective of helping to clarify in your mind some of these basic concepts that can potentially help you. My point in all this is to help show you how you can use this knowledge to raise your awareness in your overall state of consciousness.
Going on another adventure. Not sure exactly where we're gonna end up. Sure looks mighty green around here. Sure looks mighty green.
Yeah, this is a super cool spot along some creek on an island. Oh, check it out. Hey, what's that? Crazy. Looks like a blackboard. It's strange. Oh shit, there's even some chalk. Cool. For those of you who do not know, homeopathy is a holistic healing practice that aims to cure the underlying causes of disease by eliminating the negative energies that are creating it. Now, for some of you out there, I know that this is a really difficult concept to grasp, but the human body, and I'm talking about just the human body alone, it's just a lump of earth stuff that's animated by energy from the sun. And considering this statement alone, anybody with a little bit of life experience can quickly come to the understanding that there's so much more that makes us what we are from day to day as a human being. Really, when you break it down, the body itself is just a bunch of water, minerals, fats, sugars, proteins, DNA, basically a bunch of biomolecules suspended in a soluble matrix, which is the fleshy skin suit of our bodies. Really, at the end of the day, we're just a bunch of water and earth substances, dirt. And I know this doesn't sound glossy, but in this particular episode, we're not about the flash, we're about getting down to the truth with a capital T. So clearly, we're not just bodies. We're made up of other stuff. Things like our thoughts, our feelings, our habits, our associations, our personality. These are all part of what makes our human experience what it is. Now, all of these bits and pieces are made up of energy that we experience, but that we cannot see, taste, smell, or touch. It's beyond the perceptions of our senses. Now, thanks to Albert Einstein, we also know that all matter is a form of energy. All matter is a form of energy, and all of the energy is connected in the greater expanse of what we refer to as the universe, this place that we live in that's constantly expanding, unfolding, and changing. Now, our physical bodies and the physical world that we live in is really just light energy that is slowed down so much that is condensed into the things like this chalk, my hand, this tree, your eyes, the screen that you're watching this video on right this moment. So now that we are all up to speed with the concept of the energy equivalency of matter, let us get back to the subject at hand, which is what homeopathy has to say about the whole human organism and what it means to be in a state of health or a state of disease. From the homeopathic standpoint, when you consider the whole human being, there's an acknowledgement that we are a very complex accumulation of not only matter, but as well as energy on many different levels. And the whole human organism requires all of these components to work together in harmony in order for us to function in a healthy and orderly fashion. The experience of our humanness or of our being in life can be understood to unfold on 4 distinct planes of existence. The physical, which is the lowest, and the slowest vibrating or lowest energy level, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. So the physical, we're very familiar with. That's the world of matter. The emotional, that happens within us, our feelings. The mental, all of our thoughts, our intellect, and the spiritual, which is in the realm of the things that we cannot see and we don't have a lot of access to, also known as the subconscious. So these four planes of existence, from the lower to the higher, are the physical, our physical body, and the physical world the body exists in, the emotional, the realm of feelings, the mental, thoughts, associations, ideas, intellect, and spiritual, beliefs, and all of those other things that we rarely have access to that are operating below our level of consciousness. From lower to higher, from more coarse to more fine, lower energy to higher energy. This last one is considered the spiritual plane because it is so airy and evasive. And existing outside of our awareness and incredibly difficult for our logical minds to get a hold of. Nonetheless, it is present in regulating the daily rhythms that are operating in each and every one of us. The spiritual plane is kind of like the operating system on a computer, right? It's the basic structural framework that allows all of the applications to work and to run. It's the background system that supports the smooth operation of all of the machinery. I like to use the image evoked by an iceberg to really describe and elucidate the nature of the subconscious mind and all of its various attributes. As the passengers aboard the Titanic discovered quite quickly that the bulk of the mass of an iceberg is actually below the surface and not visible to the eye. Please note that the physical plane accounts for about 5% of all of the energy in the universe. And as well, likewise, the physical body only accounts for about 5% of our experience as a human being. The remainder is all up here. It's in the realm of our emotional and mental experience as well as our belief systems and the spiritual plane. So most of what is happening around us in our world as we go through life, it's not perceptible by our senses. And likewise, our conscious mind only accounts for about 5% of what actually is going on within us in what we consider to be the mind, the greater mind. 95% of what actually is operating in our mind, which is really all of this stuff here, the spiritual, the mental, and the emotional, the rest of which is happening beyond our level of awareness in the area that we refer to as the subconscious or below consciousness. Anyway, the important thing to note, the really critical takeaway from all of this is that each and every one of us has a unique energetic vibration, which is our own. It is the combined vibration of our energies on all of these levels that makes up who and what we are at any given moment in time. Much of our energy of vibration is accumulated as we move through our experience of life. Right? We move through life and we experience a series of events. Life is essentially the intersection of your internal states and where they meet outside events. And as we go through these events, we receive incoming stimuli and we select the parts that we want to keep with us and hopefully reject the parts that we don't. And so then those experiences become part of the accumulated energy of who and what we are as we move forward. Just as every human being and their experiences are different, so are each of our unique energies. Now you're in good health, right? Now you're in good health. So you're in good health, all of the energy. Now when you're in good health, all of the planes are in alignment and are balanced. And as a result, you feel a sense of harmony through your existence of your day-to-day life. Things flow with ease, and you feel good, and you move through life with grace. Now, all of these connections between the different planes, they're what homeopaths refer to as the dynamic plane. And from a lot of thought and consideration, I've made the determination, the conclusion that the dynamic plane is actually the nervous system. So the brain, the spinal cord, the nerves, all of the apparatus relating to our sensory. Basically, it's the part of our complete organism that ties everything together, which is essentially the nervous system. Now, when the organism begins to experience disease, it's the result of there being a misalignment in the various planes of existence. We humans are known as an open system, an open energetic system, which means that we're constantly getting stimulus and energy from the outside. Things are coming in. Energy is coming into us through our senses, through the food we ingest, the air we breathe in, the impressions, our experiences through our senses, providing energy into us from things like, as well as the heat as the sun. So energy is constantly coming in and moving out through us. And at the end of the day, at any given point, you're an accumulation of all of those various energy inputs throughout, up until now, throughout your life. Right? So energy is coming in and energy is going out in various forms. It's going out. And it really is this flow through of energy that gives us the experience of life. Now, unfortunately, sometimes we latch on to negative energy. And this can often happen without our awareness of it. We have an experience, and for whatever reason, through the experience, we label it as being bad, or we give it negative associations. And rather than filtering out that negative energy, discarding the negative energy, much like you would excrete the waste materials from digestion, we hang on to it because we latch on and we identify the experience as being part of ourselves and what defines us. And as a result of this circulating negative energy, right? If we've kept it in our bodies and in our experience, this circulating negative energy causes imbalances on some of the various planes. It could be a negative emotion, which causes you to have an imbalance on the emotional plane. It could be a series of negative thoughts that cause you to have an imbalance on the mental plane. Regardless, these imbalances actually, if they're left to persist over time, they will lead to chronic illness in the body. And the reason for this is because this whole hierarchy, this whole system operates from the top down, from the highest energy and most refined down through to the physical. So at first glance, you will notice that there will be disturbances in your mental and emotional bodies, right? So negative thoughts, negative emotions, and if these are left unmitigated for a long enough period of time, you will start to have physical symptoms expressed in the body. So things like cancer, arthritis, anxiety, these are all manifestations in the physical plane that have origins higher up. And oftentimes for anxiety, the problem is in the highest level, it's in the spiritual plane, it's in the realm of subconscious beliefs. And you may ask me, well, how does this happen? Well, I'll tell you, from the time that we're very little, from the time that we're children, we imbibe a lot of negative energy from the people around us, our parents, our teachers, our friends. And because of the fact that at a very young age, our minds are not fully developed, we do not have full consciousness and full awareness of what's going on and all of these things operate around us. We just basically, like sponges, absorb all of these bad habits, all of these bad thoughts, all of these bad behaviors from other people around us. And a lot of time, these things that we learn, they're falsities. They're not based on truth. Now, you may have heard the euphemism, as above, so below. Well, this is something that a very wise man named Hermes suggested many thousands of years ago. And in the context of this discussion, what it refers to, what I want you to understand is that as above, so below. So if there are imbalances or things going on in any of these upper planes, which is the realm of things that are happening inside you in your own inner world, your own personal psychological space, then these can eventually affect the physical plane. And so I'll give you an example from my experience. All the way up until I was 30, I did not know what anxiety was. I did not know what stress was. I lived pretty light, pretty freely, without very many cares in the world. Then all of a sudden, at 31, I started to exhibit signs of extreme stress and anxiety. And I was able to attribute these symptoms from a series of traumatic incidents that I had experienced in the year previous. Eventually what happened is that my anxiety got so bad that I started to experience panic attacks, where basically my nervous system was trying to tell me to stop and to slow down because it was very confused. And so it got to the point where it started making my body, tricking my body into believing that I was having a heart attack, right? So that is the beginning of the manifestation on the physical plane. And for my own personal experience, it was a result of things that were going on up in here. And from what I understand now, from my experience with homeopathy and from my own personal studies and experiences, is that this is what's happening. The higher influences the lower. That is the key point here. And at one point, I do believe that in human civilization, we were very much aware of this, but at some point we've forgotten this fact, this simple truth, or we just simply stopped caring about it. Anxiety is often the result of a misalignment in these upper planes, specifically in the spiritual and the realm of beliefs. And so if you can imagine, if you have an old belief system that has a lot of negative energy that is operating below your level of awareness, that's happening in the subconscious, it can be creating conflict in the mental and emotional planes. And typically, this is what you experience as anxiety. Anxiety and all of its symptoms, the symptoms of confusion, agitation, etc., they're the result of noisy signals being produced in the nervous system, which drives it into a state of confusion and puts it into a state of overload. It puts it over its operating threshold. Another way to look at how this works is to look at the homeopathic model from some different angles. Now, I'm sure you've all heard about this thing called the flow state, right? Flow. So, imagine a river flowing down the sea from the mountains. I'm not the best artist, at least not on a chalkboard, right? So if your system is in good alignment, then you flow like water in a river along the path of least resistance. You have this ability to just move through life with grace and ease with very little resistance. Now, if you're out of alignment, if any part of you is out of alignment, then what happens is you start to drag. You start to drag along the banks, or you get caught, right? If this is the main flow, you get caught in the back eddies, right? You get caught where there's friction along the banks. And as a result, you get out of that flow state and you start to encounter resistance. You start to have difficulties in life. You start to have negative thoughts, negative feelings. You start to have issues in your body. You have ailments. And so this is another way to look at how all of this works from a different angle. Personally, I think the best model for understanding this is what I like to refer to as the conduit model. And in this model, you need to imagine that there's a conduit or a pipe, and you are in the middle of it. And again, if all elements of your being, that means the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and the physical are in alignment, right? Then you flow down the middle of that pipe like a jet of water being forced down the middle. You're just shooting through life in the smoothest, sexiest way possible without any resistance. As soon as you get out of alignment in any one of these planes, the 4 planes of existence, then what happens is you start dragging along the sides of the pipe, right? You're over here, you're off of your center, you're dragging against the walls of the pipe, again creating resistance and friction, which then slows you down and prevents you from experiencing the life that you're meant to lead. And again, I want you to really understand that if you are in alignment, then you are actually, you are your idealized self. You are exactly who and what you're meant to be. You are fulfilling your purpose here on earth, if that makes sense, right? We're all here in these human bodies. We've come down from ethereal stardust and we've been deposited in these human bodies to perform a function. Our bodies and our lives have been designed for us to maximize our full potential and to become and to do that one thing that only we can do in this lifetime on earth. And as long as you're in alignment, you're flowing down through this pipe. Now, another really good way to imagine this is what I like to call being in the pocket. Now, if you take a cross section of that conduit, of that pipe, and you're in the flow, and you're in alignment in all 4 areas, the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and the physical, then again, if this is a snapshot in time, one instant, you can see that you are clearly in the pocket. You are in the zone of least resistance and maximum potential, right? So, and while you're here, there's energy flowing into you, right? From the outside, there's energy coming up through you, through your consciousness, and that energy is being put out. You're projecting to the outside world all of that energy that is coming into you and passing through you with ease and grace. And you are at your maximum potential in living your best idealized life. Now again, if you're off center, if you're out of alignment, you're then over here against the wall and you're looking That's a sad face. You're looking sad. Again, you're dragging, you're stuck, you're along the banks, and your true place is over here. But what's happening over here when you're out of alignment is that you have a bunch of negative energy in your system, and that negative energy creates a lot of dissonance and disharmony around you, right? It creates a lot of noise, And so your experience of life, what you experience in life, the quality of it goes down. And for those of us that have the opportunity to experience anxiety, it's not necessarily a curse. There are some good things that can come out of it. Then what you're experiencing is just exactly this. Again, it's the result of misalignments in the upper planes, the spiritual, the mental, and the emotional. And a lot of it is producing symptoms in the mental emotional field, which means all of those feelings that you have that sometimes feels like you're butting heads with yourself or you're being torn apart in two different directions. It is the result of two different parts of you competing for your attention and your focus, right? It's an old part of you. It's an old subconscious belief that is producing these old patterns, and the new ones, which typically represent what you really want to be doing, what you really want to be feeling, how you know your life can be, they are battling with the old ones, producing this effect. So at the end of the day, what does this all mean? What does this all mean, and how can it help you? At the end of the day, you want to be in this sweet spot. You want to be in the pocket. And so, what can you do? What can you do to get to this place? So what I have found in my experience, the only way to find true pathways to healing is by working in the right areas with the right energy. And I've found, again, from my own experience, I have found that the only way to approach this is to dig deep within yourself, is to scour the areas of the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual being. Only by fully understanding what you feel, what you think, and what you believe, both about yourself and about the outside world that you exist in, can you actually change the way that you feel, think, and believe about yourself and the world. And so this is the area that needs to be worked on. And it is not incredibly difficult work, but it's not easy either. It requires a lot of discipline and a lot of focus. Now, I've recently wrote a 70-page book about this, and at the moment, it's for free on my website at www.changeyourmind.life. And I don't like to give any guarantees on anything in this life. Nothing's really fixed and guaranteed. But I promise you that if you download this book and you give it a read and you implement some of the ideas that I suggest there, I can promise you that you can make some pretty substantial changes in your life and produce some really amazing and beautiful results. Only by fully understanding what you feel, think, and believe about yourself can you thereby raise your conscious awareness and begin to create positive change in your life. By learning to turn around and objectively look at yourself through the process known as self-observation, and thereby gain self-knowledge in all of these areas about how you operate in the world on the emotional, mental, and spiritual levels, can you then start to actually change the conditions that are producing your anxious states. And From my own experience, I can tell you that if you start to do this work, you can actually completely change your life, turn things around, and eliminate anxiety and depression from your life forever. By gathering the essential self-knowledge, you obtain a solid foundation from which you can consciously rebuild your perfect idealized life, that life that is unrestricted and free from all of the shitty symptoms of anxiety. Now, in summary, I'd just like to reiterate my 3 main points. Firstly, you are not just your body. Although the body is essential for our lives on earth, it is the least important part of who you are. It's the least important part because it's the lowest form. It's the physical, which is at the bottom in the energetic hierarchy of the spiritual, the mental, the emotional, and the physical. It's on the physical level. Secondly, the greater part of what forms our experience of life as a human being is in the invisible energy realm of the spiritual, the mental, and the emotional. It is that realm that exists beyond that of our senses, beyond that which is perceptible by our sight, smell, hearing, touch, and taste. Thirdly, and thirdly, my third point being is that most forms of disease are the direct result of an imbalance or misalignment in the spiritual, mental, or emotional planes. If there is an imbalance in the upper planes of the spiritual, mental, or emotional realm, then our overall system, its resilience is reduced, and we become more susceptible to contagions, viruses, bacteria, things from the outside, right? So most forms of chronic physical ailments, illness, or disease are the result of imbalances or misalignments in the planes of the spiritual, mental, or emotional bodies. Now, all of these ideas were proposed thousands of years ago in Western civilization, and most recently in the 1800s by Samuel Hahnemann, who was the founder of the modern practice known as homeopathy. Anyways, I feel like this has been a long and winding road, and from my abode here in the temperate rainforest of British Columbia, I like to say that's all for today's episode. And until next time, take care, stay cool, and please remember that your presence is always truly a gift.